Welcome to the Connect or Die podcast. Holy cow. We've got an intense, super intense, but I think very, very good podcast ready for you today. I think the theme of our podcast, at least for me today, and what I'm going into thinking about is the line from 1984 that I text to you, Logan.
Yeah.
Orthodoxy is unconsciousness. And that's at least the theme for me. That's
yeah. And I would say the one that came to my mind is the title of the documentary that we kind of want to discuss a little bit.
Yeah.
Out of Shadows. Just bringing things, and then maybe those two things go hand in hand. Orthodoxy being, for me, when you get into this mode of I just do what I'm told. I do what I'm told. I do what I'm told. I toe the party line, right? Because that's everything that 1984 is about.
Yep.
And the idea in 1984 that if you can create a people who are unconscious, you can control them, and then you can have power. And then there's, that was my favorite thing. He's torturing Winston, and he's like, why do we need power? Like, why do we seek power? Why does the party seek power? And Winston is trying to figure out the right answer. He's just had that episode where he's, been tortured over and over for saying that 4 fingers are up when it might be 5, it might be 3, it might be 4. He's just like, just tell me what to say.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to think of the right answer. And he's like, well, you recognize that humanity is unable to control themselves, and so you take the position of being their big brother, essentially.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're stupid.
Yeah.
He's like, you are so dumb if you think that that's the truth. He's like, we seek power for the sake of power.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And it's, anyway.
And that's why I brought on the power of the 80s or the early 90s today with my pineapple.
You just make me want to sing
the
I just want to sing the
I'm
title.
even wearing black acid jeans, just so you know.
Acid wash jeans?
Oh,
yeah. You got to stand up and show me that.
Check those babies out.
You straight up look like, what's his name from Saved by the Bell? Zach, whatever. Dude, his last name is.
That is a huge compliment. That is a huge one.
That guy's a rebel. He's a rebel.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say your shirt makes me want to sing the theme to SpongeBob.
Yeah. Dude, I saw this shirt and I'm like, oh, I need some of that in my life right now.
Well, you can see by my outfit how I'm feeling today, because I'm in all black. I'm like, oh, you've been taking me down some dark holes, my friend. Like, I think I was telling you, I think we need to move on to some lighter content after today, just for the sake of my soul.
Yeah, I agree.
Just like, please, sure. Dave, let's go back to talking about Jesus, please.
No, and I think it's so interesting. One thing I was thinking about was you were talking. Have you seen the movie Onward?
Yes.
Okay. I bawl every time I watch that movie. Like, I watch it with my little girls. Yeah, it's the new one, Chris Pratt. And Tom Holland. Yeah, dude, I cry that's 4 times during it. And I think I thought about like what you talked about, like, with 1984 and Big Brother, and it's like that's the antithesis of a negative archetype of a Big Brother, and then Onward is the representation, which. There's some interesting stuff in there, man. Like, I almost wonder if there's like, I don't know. Like, there was no advertising for that show, which I thought was weird. I saw one trailer and then all of a sudden it was out. Like,
right. Well, and then with the
beautiful and
with the coronavirus, it kind of, I think it cut its run short in the theaters, so it was actually put on streaming devices way sooner than anything.
Yeah. Well, and it was just interesting because. I won't give it away. Whoever wants to go watch it, but there's a scene toward the end when Tom Holland's character has a realization that I think
I would
is
say
really, really powerful.
give it away. Like spoiler. Like skip over this.
So he just realized, so he doesn't have a father, which that is weird that Disney always does that, but that there's never two parents in the household. But he doesn't have a father, but he realizes that his older brother was always watching out for him, helping him, going through life with him. Like he had been that good older brother to him, and excited about it. Like when his older brother finds out that he doesn't have the gift of magic, but his little brother does, he doesn't get sad that he doesn't have it. He's
for
like,
a moment.
My little brother. Yeah.
He has his moments, right?
Yeah.
He's still like,
but he's like, my little brother has the gift, has the magic gift, and he gets excited about it. And he's like, they joke, and I don't know, there's just this connection. And so there at the end, me having lost an older brother that was very much like that to me, I just, man, killed me. Every time I watch it, it just like wrecks me. Because there's something about having somebody to kind of show you the ropes. And if that person, they even talk about it at the beginning of the documentary, they're like, the way that we grow up is we're taught like, hey, the sky is blue and this is why, and when we take it from a trusted source, then when we find out that source might not have the best intentions, that can be pretty eye-opening.
Right.
That can be difficult to swallow.
Man, I didn't. I watched it and I was like, because me, I cry all the time. Like, so for you to say that you cried so many times, I had never even viewed it that way.
Yeah.
And it's cool now thinking about, because Ash is pregnant and we're about a month away from our little baby Jack being born.
Yeah.
And holy cow, that boy is so blessed, because he has a 5-year-old brother who is like, basically one day Ben was like, that's my kid. I'm like, I have a kid. And we're like, what? You have a kid? Like, that's news to us. He's like, yeah, Jack. And I'm like,
oh, that's awesome.
Jack's my kid. And he's like, no, he's my kid too. And I'm like, well, are you going to change his diapers? And then he like got really sad and he was like, I don't want to change his diapers, but he's my kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that hits me hard, man. And thinking about my own big brother, and not just that, dude, but thinking about you and how you've been a brother to me and showing me the ropes in certain areas. You pumped me with too many emotions, man, this week. having me read 1984, which you didn't even tell me to read. I did it on my own. And then having me watch that documentary, Out of Shadows, there's heavy emotion going on today.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm excited about it. I am excited to talk about this because I'm excited, but it's also not, I mean, this is like a big old pill. You know what I mean? This is like a bunch of vitamins. It's not something easy to take. But what I liked about the Out of the Shadows documentary, which is getting more and more difficult to find, which I find.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah. Like,
okay, so if you
search for it, if you have the link, then you can watch it. But if you don't have the link, like
you can even search the title exactly on YouTube.
Yep.
And you can't find it. It's not there.
Yep.
And it's called, the title is, and I don't know if they'll change it to like try and, it's called Out of Shadows. Out of Shadows, not even Out of the Shadows.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Out of Shadows. Official is what it's called.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was trying to say,
and we'll link it. We'll link it in this. We'll link it in this podcast. We'll add it to everything. But it's
we'll put this up on Facebook, where we'll probably get no traction.
Yeah. Yeah, all of a sudden it'll just
it just disappears.
Yeah. But what I like about oftentimes when you begin looking into this stuff, and we'll get into what it is and talk a little bit about it, but oftentimes it becomes like super weird, like all of a sudden it becomes super weird, like fringe conspiracy theory type stuff. And what I liked about Out of Shadows is it sticks to only those things that are basically provable. Like they're like, hey, here's the document, here's what it says, here's who is on the document, here's what they're trying to do, and here's the evidence that that is what they did. And that's what I like.
It gets. I feel like it gets there. There are moments where you're like, "Whoa, this is pretty heavy conspiracy theory." Like, especially when they brought on, and I could tell she was just super passionate. I can't remember her name, but towards the end of it, they brought on this author who was in the media for.
Well, she was a reporter. Yeah, she's an investigative reporter for years, and then she did entertainment reporting for a while, and then she went back into investigative reporting during Pizzagate.
Right.
For those who remember that.
So when she was on there, like it started feeling very, very heavy conspiracy. Like but the thing is with a lot of these things, there's a lot of links that just go away. They just disappear.
Yeah.
And for me, the lack of that almost says more than the presence of it.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that there are so many links here that would point to something, but there seems to be a concerted effort to silence that. I mean, that's straight up 1984. Like George Orwell, like he predicted it, and I just want to start there. Can we start with 1984?
Please, let's start there. Go ahead.
Because the interesting thing about 1984 is, as I was reading it earlier this week, before you even had me watch the documentary, and I'm sitting here and I'm going through the themes of the book, and anyone who's read it is very familiar with the themes. There are basically three major world powers who are constantly at war with each other.
Yep.
But we're in Oceania, is the main place where Winston, the main character, he's basically a bureaucrat within the party. And he's telling us all these things that are going on. Big brother, right? The big dictator, everyone trusts, like a god figure. He's got your back. The concepts of changing the past, altering the past, altering the narrative constantly, even if it changes. Like at one point in the book, who they're warring with changes.
Right.
And not only do they change the present, they change everything and say, we've always been at war with these people. They weren't our allies 2 days ago.
Yep.
It's always been this way.
The chocolate ration is one that they do where they're like, they take it from 30 grams down to 20 grams. And then a week later they say, thank goodness we have, like, Big Brother has given us an extra ration of 20 grams of chocolate. Like, so they're constantly changing, and people just don't remember. Like they,
well, not that they don't remember,
themselves. They force themselves to forget.
That's where the concept of doublethink comes in. And that's a big part of it. Is you have the idea of, well, you have the truth that is being told to you, and you have memory. And the thinking of Winston the entire time is, well, the state can't control my memory.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out they can. If they punish enough what you think you remember, they can actually control. And so the concept of doublethink being like, well, is 2 + 2 4? Well, sometimes it's 4, but sometimes it's 5. It depends upon what you need.
Yeah.
That kind of, and so I'm dealing with all these concepts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, obviously, in terms of world powers, we have many today.
Yeah.
And I think we're all becoming even more aware of all the players as this coronavirus things happens, because we're looking, well, what are these people doing? What are they doing? What are the leaders of this place doing?
Right.
We don't just have 3. And so I'm like, well, what are the parallels? Where do I see this influence? Who is Big Brother? Is basically the question that I asked myself. And even before watching this documentary, the thought, when I asked that question, intuitively, what came to my mind was the media. I'm like, who is Big Brother?
Yeah.
The media.
Yeah.
It's the television screen that I'm bringing into my home. It's the place where my children's eyes are looking. If I'm thinking, well, where does my son's eyes most?
Yeah.
Television's up there. It's up there.
Yeah.
And on some days, I think back to some of the hardest times in my life. Some days the television had more of his attention than I did.
Totally.
Which is a scary thought.
Totally.
And so
you're busy, you're doing a bunch of stuff. You're like, hey, just like, I need a break type of thing.
Yep.
Just here's a show.
Just click on the boob tube, right? And you turn it to Disney, and you don't even necessarily ever ask yourself the question, who's the source? Who's the source of these? Because we're just like, well, it's good. It's Disney. It's Bambi. It's, it's whatever. Like, but yeah, it just really, really got me thinking that the media does have an incredible influence over what we think, over how we act, over our behavior. And if you want proof of that, just fucking get on Facebook.
Yeah. Or if you want proof of that, go look up these articles of Steve Jobs and here's an example of doublethink. Steve Jobs was creating situations for people in other countries that were horrific, that they were putting literally nets up to catch people from jumping to their death rather than having to work anymore. Does anyone think about that when they think of Steve Jobs?
Nope.
Think differently. It's so ironic. Like it's almost mocking. Like it's almost mocking. That's the way I would think about it. Like it's like they're making fun of everyone.
Right. Well, and it's one of the concepts of 1984 that I found fascinating, and I talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on previous episodes.
Yeah.
Power. What is the purpose of power? Why do people seek power? And we have all of these altruistic or idealistic maybe thoughts that come to our mind. Well, yeah, that's for this reason, this reason, this reason. No. A lot of people seek power for the sake of power.
Yeah.
And in 1984, one of the things that I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Do you remember the character that brought Winston into the Brotherhood, and then you ultimately found out that he basically is Big Brother?
Oh.
What's his name?
Oh, I can't remember.
He says it so many times, but like he's such a terrible character that I don't even remember his name.
Yeah.
But he basically tells him that's what we seek every day. That's what the party's all about. It's triumph for the sake of triumph. It's power over another for the sake of power over another, so that you can feel that triumph. It's hate that fuels triumph over another person. And he asked him the question, how do you control people? Well, with pain.
Let's see here. We've got Sim. No, he goes, was it Goldstein? No, Goldstein's the one who fights the Big Brother. O'Brien. Is it O'Brien?
Yep, O'Brien.
O'Brien.
O'Brien. Yeah, that's where you really like, the interactions between O'Brien and Winston at the end, I feel like is where you really start to understand what this whole book is about.
Yeah.
And but yeah, you were talking about Steve Jobs, and that's what I feel like it almost becomes. What can I get away with?
Yeah.
What can I just like completely have people call me out on, but I still somehow look like a savior?
Yeah.
Because I'm in control, or I'm part of an organization that's in control. And so, you can call these things conspiracy theories, but the reality is, if you think that there aren't groups of people in the world that are seeking to have power and influence over the masses, then you're naive. You're stupid.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Well, what's interesting is the term conspiracy theorist comes from the CIA. It was a term invented by the CIA for anyone questioning the JFK assassination. It's a dismissive statement. And so it's like,
it's newspeak.
Yeah, it is newspeak. It was literally created for the purpose of not listening to whatever someone says after they're called or labeled as a conspiracy theorist.
Right, because you can just be like, well, I can literally dismiss everything that just came out of that person's mouth, whether they seem intellectual or not, or rational or not, by just putting this label on them.
Yeah. Well, and I think the fact that the CIA omitted documents when presenting MK Ultra to Congress. They said like, "Oh, it was a complete waste of money. It didn't work." Like, that's genius. That's so smart. It
Well,
didn't work. And it's like, but then their doctors and their psychologists, some of the main ones, said like, "Oh yeah, we got it to work. We got
right.
it to work."
And that was one of the I would say darker realizations. And the interesting thing about out of shadow, out of shadows, I'm trying to like say it by its actual title so people can search it and fucking find it.
Yeah.
Is one of the darker parts was the realization of I think it was called Paperclip.
Yeah,
Right?
Operation Paperclip.
Paperclip. And I knew about that. I knew about it. I had, but we always get the lighter side of the narrative.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we brought these people over and they helped to build our space program.
Yeah.
And then we went to the moon.
Yeah.
But,
well,
I've been
Werner von Braun was a Nazi.
He was a Nazi.
Werner von
Straight
Braun.
up. Yeah. Straight up. And he created bombs, and am I the person to judge him and say who he ultimately is? Like, no, but
yeah,
dude was a war criminal. Like, he should have been tried, but he was brought over to the United States and basically was given the chance to completely rewrite his own story. And so one of the things that I remember going through the Holocaust Museum.
Yeah.
It was a pretty difficult time in my life. It was in my first marriage. Just rough things going on. My son was about a year old. When I look at my life, probably one of the most depressed states I've really ever been in. I just remember feeling like a zombie.
Yeah.
And this will show you, because you know me, dude. Like, I'm a sucker for a sob story.
Yeah.
And one of the worst sob stories ever is the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Like I watched The Boy in the Striped Pajamas once. I've watched it once. I will never watch that movie again.
Yeah.
Because it made me feel terrible. I did not sleep for a few nights after that, but it was beautiful. Like, what they did in that movie was beautiful, the way they depicted it. I'm walking through the Holocaust Museum, dude, and I'm feeling nothing. Like, that'll just show you kind of the state I was in. I'm seeing these terrible things. I'm walking through this corridor of just shoes of the Holocaust, and just like, oh wow, like this is, I'm somewhat intellectually feeling the weight of it, but not connecting to it. One of the most horrifying things that I found out in the Holocaust Museum was the amount and the extent of human experimentation that took place.
Yep.
In those concentration camps. Everything imaginable that you could possibly do to a human being, they did in those camps. And they did it for the purpose of discovering basically human psychology.
Yeah.
They had some of the brightest minds in science pushing people to the brink and just observing them, writing notes, cutting people open, cutting brains, like everything you could possibly think of. Having a son bury their child and like watching it, like just like, or having a son bury their father, like watching these things and observing and taking notes. All of that stuff brought to the United States, given to the CIA, and out of that comes MK Ultra.
Yep.
Out of that terrible, dark, disgusting study of human behavior, and now all of a sudden you have this mind control.
Yeah.
You have LSD spawned from that. And so you start to realize, you're like, whoa, there's a lot of connections here, and I don't know exactly what it means, but the meaning is not good.
Yeah. Well, and I do find it interesting that the one of JFK, such an interesting president, he's just fascinating to me. I find it so interesting to watch him. But he said, "I will break the CIA into 1,000 pieces, and it will blow in the wind." That was one of his claims. He made he wanted to begin to take down some of this stuff, some of this controlling others. And so, yeah, of course he got shot. And there are things that are weird about that whole thing that we don't need to get into today. And there's just a lot of unknown there. But I find it interesting. I find this document.
Well, how many presidents have been assassinated?
Yeah.
Who was the other one?
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln.
What was he doing, right?
Yeah. Well, and his security guard was across the street.
He was trying to destroy a huge part of the establishment.
Yep. And so I think there's this idea that once you see the king with his pants down, right? Then when you see him in all his glory, you the veneer is gone. You see how gilded everything is. And this isn't necessarily some of this stuff that we have been going through and that we've been talking about the last few weeks has been very dark. But I also think that it's an operation in contrast. It's once you can see it, then you can see the light. I think.
It's the corona. It's the corona, man.
Yeah.
The corona effect. And I believe in the connectivity of all things. I'll just kind of make this personal for just a little bit. Coronavirus pops up, job situation in my family completely thrown over. Essentially, 90% of the way that my wife and I were making money in February is gone. Yeah. We've had to completely adjust. And one of those adjustments, and I've talked about it, is I started working at a factory, just doing a basic production job.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to do that was so that a big reason was because of this podcast. I wanted to be able to dedicate some time to reading books with you. You and I kind of reading books and bouncing ideas based off the books we're reading. So that happened. All of a sudden I have 25 hours a week just dedicated to being able to read and listen to audiobooks. And in the course of that, you've had me read, 3 books on Jesus that have completely altered that thinking and brought me down paths that I thought I had left, a long time ago after leaving the LDS Church and the betrayal that I felt there. And betrayal is a very charged word. That's definitely 100% my perception. You had The Alchemist is a book that I've read now. The Little Prince. I read the Lord of the Rings books.
Yeah.
And that whole thing. And then now to 1984. And so it's there's been this mass influx of information all of a sudden that I've been consuming from good sources. These are sources I like. These are sources I trust. These are messages that I am vetting as it's coming to me. I'm questioning everything coming in, and it's altering the way that I see things. And then all of a sudden, you kind of bring into my life this idea of the pedophile rings. Things that I kind of am I know those things are going on, but you just don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
You just don't. It's so dark. And it's heavy, and it weighs on you. And I would be lying if I were to say that Dave, you've cost me some sleep over the last
I've cost myself a lot of sleep.
I know, man. And so there is darkness. You're absolutely right. But at the same time, there is this, you start to just feel this humanity. that is within every single one of us that is better. It's better than this. It just has to be. And bringing in kind of the Lord of the Rings a little bit, I feel like sometimes when you have these moments where you're carrying so much darkness, you can almost feel like Frodo, like with the ring.
Yeah.
You're just like, wow, how can there be so much darkness? And it just brings to my mind the quote from Gandalf, about the dark times. No one wants to see the dark times. No one ever expects to. But it's what we do. It's what we do. That's what defines us, and that's what shapes us, and that's what molds us. And if we can battle back the darkness, and I think I'm pulling things from The Hobbit, but he talks about the small actions.
Well, and all I can think about, and this is what keeps coming back to me, was the scene in the movie where because I actually started watching Lord of the Rings last night.
Oh yeah. Do you watch the extended ones?
Yeah.
Or do you watch,
you have to watch the extended.
Exactly.
If you're gonna do it, you might as well do it right. But there's that scene when they're on the slopes of Mordor, and Frodo says, like, I can't remember the taste of strawberries or the feel of grass, and then Sam, picking him up on his shoulders, like, says, like, well, then let us be rid of it. And they make their way. And what's beautiful in the book is the reason that they were able to make it and destroy the ring was because Sauron, it never entered his mind that someone would want to destroy the ring. That's why they won. Because
he just believed no one would ever even try.
Yeah.
His power was so great, no one would ever try.
Yeah. And that's what kept his eye away from the mountain. That, as well as, I mean, many other things. But I find that this idea that, like, it kind of actually, it goes back to, like, Bug's Life, right? He's like, you remember that scene with Hopper when he breaks the bottle and he drops all of those, like, pieces of grain on top of one of the
he's throwing the little seeds. He's like, how's that feel?
Yeah, does that hurt?
Oh, it's not, right? Just one ant at a time, right?
Yeah. And then he opens up the whole thing and buries him. And I think that's why ideas like liberty, voiced by Kevin
Spacey.
yeah. Don't think about it too much, but I think
who also plays Underwood in House of Cards. Ironically.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that guy's a monster. But I think this idea of personal freedom, the idea of freedom of speech, the idea that you can think what you want to think, you can look at the evidence. Like, that's where I have probably my biggest difficulty with people is when they assume that they know better than everyone else. Like, when you talk to somebody and they're like, and this is going to be a little bit political, but when somebody says, like, communism is a good idea, oh, they just didn't do it right. What you're really saying is, I could do it better. And that is extremely arrogant. Like, these ideas that were put down in the creation of our country are so monumental, are so like we literally started a war over a teeny tax on tea. We're like, no, and even Great Britain even sent over, like, okay, all right, we'll do these things and you'll be a part of us and you get all this stuff that you've been wanting. And we were like, no, never mind. We want to be our own.
Right. Well, not to make this too religious, but you look at the United States and its founding, it was built on Christian principles.
Yeah.
And and not to bash on any other religions or anything, but it's like, if you want to look at who in the world is enjoying the most freedom, however you would define that, it's in places where usually, it seems like Christianity is at the heart of it. There's something about Christ and what he taught in the New Testament that goes so beautifully with the ideas of free speech and freedom of the individual and the individual will, and being a protector of that. I've studied Islam, and I think there are beautiful things in the Quran. I think there are beautiful things in the Muslim religion. But look at where that is the predominant religion. What do you see in most of those states? You see oppression, you see death, you see just the opposite of freedom. And so I think
you see anyone who's macabre and out of the group. Like, if you're gay, you're thrown off a roof. If you don't fit, then you're cast away. And Jesus's message is the exact opposite.
Right. And I think, it's easy to, and I'm not trying to put everyone within these religions under these circles.
Yeah. And there's amazing people within it. Like, it's like you can disagree with the results, and you can disagree with things without attacking the individual. I think that's like, anyone who's a thinking individual can see that there's a huge difference there.
Right. And that was one point that was made towards the end of the documentary Out of Shadows that I really appreciate, is they came back on and said, hey, we've basically villainized Hollywood.
Yeah.
But you need to understand something. Most of Hollywood is filled with great people.
Yeah.
Incredible people. Most of Islam is filled with incredible people. It's these leaders, the people at the top, the people who control, that create the message.
The Harvey Weinsteins.
Exactly. And so I just think that I'm not going to tell people, what to think about the founding of America, but those leaders that set up this, there was something about them. There was something different, I think.
Yeah.
And when have you ever seen a state that was founded on similar principles as the United? Well, it's obviously Rome. And yes, Rome did fall because eventually they went away. They eventually went away from those founding principles. And I've seen that. I've seen that in our country. I've seen us go away from, if you look at our history.
When you look at things there's some weird stuff, man. Like, it's sad when you start to see people not understand, and that's a direct result, I think, of our education system. But when you see people not understanding what freedom means, not understanding that, like, if I believe in freedom of speech, that means that I believe that if I disagree with you to my core, I'll also fight to the death for your ability to express that opinion. And when I saw that in California, they were like, hey, turn in those businesses, turn in anybody that's not following the social distancing, that made me sick.
Right.
Because that is what happened you look at, like, the Soviet Union. That's what, like, if you pretend to pay us, we'll pretend to work. Like, it's this idea that the government is.
Even during the Red Scare in the United States, with communism.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, these are just, these are not to be taken lightly. And, it's interesting because when I start to see that a paddleboarder out paddleboarding by himself was arrested, when I see that a dad was arrested for taking his kids to the park and having a picnic, when I see that people are starting to line up And in Mississippi, there was almost a riot. It got really close. They ended up changing their rules so people could get food, but people were in lines waiting to get food. Like, it's just, we're not over the line yet, but it is scary. And you need to understand that, like, there is a narrative. That's what the whole Out of Shadows documentary is about, is like, hey, there is a narrative and there are things going on here. And people are trying to control. They're trying to control the masses. And the way that, and I think that if we're not empowering the individual and we're forcing groupthink, like if all of your friends have the exact same political views as you, you are a part of groupthink. You are. That's why, it's like, you, at least for me, that's why I actually appreciate, especially when someone disagrees with me vehemently on something and they tell me that, I really do appreciate it, because that's an individual who, and what I've found is, like, hey, if we have a longer conversation, we find that we're a lot closer to the middle that we think we are.
Mm-hmm.
But it is fascinating, man. We live in such an interesting time, because this 1984, this control of speech, this control of memory through speech, it's like we have to go back and find something offensive that doesn't agree with us in 2020 that somebody tweeted back in 2010. And like Kevin Hart's a perfect example of that. They go back to 4 tweets that he did in 2012, and then they don't let him host the Oscars because of those 4 tweets from 8 years earlier. I think this attempt to control, and then you have YouTube deranking this documentary, even though it has over 7 million views in less than 7 days. Like,
well, and you had said that.
Yeah.
That it has 7 million. And when I watched it today, it was 1.7.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Well, I saw that other people are starting to repost it. I think they're trying to spread it out so it doesn't get taken down. And I know that one thing, I went to look for their website, out of shadows.org. And I wasn't able to find it. Now, maybe I had the wrong link, and I'll try a couple of different ones.
Maybe you did Out of the Shadows.
I may have done Out of the Shadows, and then I couldn't find it. So, but I do have the original link that I sent you, so we'll add that to the video. But basically, what it talks about in this documentary is that in the 60s and 70s, the CIA was, without people's knowledge, drugging them and testing them and attempting to, the whole point of the MK Ultra program was to be able to alter first of all, be able to input memories into people, be able to destroy memories in people, and then be able ultimately to be able to create assassins that they wouldn't even know that they had done it, that after they act, they would forget. And when they finally were brought to trial, they had destroyed all of the records of it. And so we go off very sparse data now. But that's what they were trying to create. And the CIA worked directly with Disney, with all of these large media companies. Most of them were a part of the CIA. The CIA bought all of the land in Florida for Disney World. Like, there are connections there. There is paperwork that we can pull from. And there is an attempt to control. You can go back and watch the old TV programs. What it used to do is it would play the national anthem at 12 o'clock at night, and there would be messaging within it. You can find it on YouTube right now. There would be hidden messages within, saying like, don't think for yourself, trust the government. Like, there are things happening where there is a concerted effort to not only control the narrative, but control people and the way they think about things. And I was so surprised. At first, I thought it was just a Little Mermaid had some weird sexual stuff in it, or just Lion King had weird sexual stuff in it. And then you find that I was so sad to see this, but Monsters Inc. First of all, super strange movie. Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, I loved that movie. My girls love that movie. But there is sexual pictures on of that in Boo's room. There's drawings of sexual pictures. And then you think about the narrative of the stories. They're using the fear of children to power their society. It's like, oh, whoa, I didn't even think about.
Damn you, Dave. You just fucked up Monsters Inc. for me.
Yeah. But you start thinking about it.
Eventually they switch to laughter, okay?
Right.
So like they redeem themselves, don't they?
Right. But then you combine that with the satanic cults within Hollywood and the satanic themes with things like adrenochrome that is created from the adrenal glands of children when they are afraid. That freaks me out, man. That like, and this isn't hearsay. This is. I mean, you have Mark Zuckerberg saying that he took adrenochrome. You have like, there's documentation of people actually talking about this stuff, and then, and you look at. I went back and I watched that amazing Golden Globe.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
There were so many things I just like glanced over.
Holy cow!
He
hit them. He
hit them every single thing that comes out of his mouth.
Yep.
He is intentional and he is hitting them hard.
And
even the thing about the plane, I was like, Jeffrey, like I didn't even. Yeah, you're just mad that you had to get here on your own plane. Like,
yeah. And he's like, oh, big year for pedophile movies.
But there's true.
You bunch of perverts. He calls them all perverts. It's like
he talks. Well, I think the joke that he was really leading up to with the pedophile movies was the two popes.
Yeah. Holy cow! Well, and he calls out Tim Cook, the head of Apple. You know.
Well, and he basically straight up said, he's like, if what was the organization?
Yeah, if ISIS came out with a streaming service, you guys would be calling your
agents.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, we talked about it last time in our podcast last time, just about questioning, being willing to ask questions about the sources. Yeah. That's what this documentary is starting to shed some light on. Now, is everything it's saying, like the conclusions, all like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Right. But the facts that they're presenting are alarming by themselves. Yeah. When you start to compare them and look for connections between them and other facts, then you're like, okay, there are individuals who are seeking to control. Who are seeking to control the masses, even in the United States of America. And what would be the best way to do that in a freedom of the press, freedom of the speech type of a place? It would be through our media.
Yep.
Go back into like
when they do that montage of all of the newscasters saying the exact same lines. That was so creepy. They show like over 100 of them, and they meld them all together. They're all saying the exact same lines, word for word.
Something about how this is very dangerous to our democracy. This is very dangerous to our democracy.
Yeah.
And so, like,
we don't live in a democracy, just in case you're wondering. We live in a constitutional republic.
You just dropped the bomb. That's true. It is
most
true.
People, when they ask, they're like, "What kind of government do we have?" We have a democracy. No, we don't. That's not what this is. But anyway, continue with your thoughts.
But you go back to the 40s during World War II. Disney was making propaganda.
Yep.
Disney was producing cartoon propaganda for the war. Now, am I saying I'm against World War II and the United States involvement in that? No, I'm not. But what I'm saying is a corporation that created movies, particularly for children, were throwing up, terrible, just scary depictions of the Nazis.
Yeah.
And you start to see, okay, well, there's connection here, right?
Yeah.
Disney signed contracts with the government saying that they would do these things. And if you think that stopped when the war was over, it didn't fucking stop. That was the beginning. Okay.
Yep.
That was the beginning of the networking that was like, oh, hey, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah.
How long has Mickey Mouse been under copyright?
Yeah.
Why, like, who are the powers that could make that happen, and why are they doing that for Disney? Okay.
Yeah.
And so,
well, even the lead singer, there's just strange things that happen. We know that the Vietnam War was started, and that it was started on a false premise that
right.
the Vietnamese had attacked a U.S. ship. Well, the captain that called that false premise and 100% factually did not happen. His son is the lead singer of the Doors. I'm not saying that there's a connection there, but the fact that that is true is strange. And then as soon as the Vietnam War ended, he died. The lead singer of the Doors died shortly after that. So it's like there are things happening and that have happened and continue to happen. And then you get into the spirit cooking, you start getting into some of this other stuff that's really, really dark and hard to.
Yes, when they started showing the pictures of, people essentially eating these cakes that look
exactly like a human being.
Well, and not even just. I mean, it would be disgusting enough if it's like, this cadaver-looking cake.
Yeah.
But just depicting human beings in just these nasty, looking like they were just slaughtered in the worst way.
Yeah.
And yeah, you start to just the desensitizing effect of the media. It's just you can see it. It's out there.
Yeah.
And
well, you look at something like Voodoo Donuts that has pedophile. They have the pedophile symbols within there, and I love Voodoo Donuts. I went to them in Austin. I went to them in Portland. I was like, oh, these are great, and I didn't think anything of it. But they literally give you a little teeny human donut with a pretzel stuck in the middle with red jelly filling. Like a little pretzel stick stuck inside the middle of it, and it's got red jelly. That is strange. That is strange. And it's like...
Yeah, to try to desensitize someone to something like that is very, very occult.
Well, and now Microsoft took down there. So the main artist, if you want to call her that has done this spirit cooking and has created these frankly disgusting parties, these disgusting things happening. That Microsoft, I couldn't believe they did this. Like, how tone deaf can you be? But they put up a ad featuring her with one of their products like 2 weeks ago. And before they took it down, it was in the tens of thousands of dislikes and like very little likes because people are waking up.
Yeah. And and so I just we're talking about a lot of things, and I think
sorry, I get a little bit sporadic.
Oh, you're okay. And I as we're talking about these things, I start to just have this real fear within me, that we would be labeled as conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
And I think that's the scary thing. That's the scary thing is we live in a time where even shedding light on a fraction of the things that we're talking about, we could be labeled as conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
But what is our intention? Truthfully, Dave, like, what is our intention? What's you and I's intention? We just don't want to see people get hurt.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, I just don't want to see people get hurt. And if I'm wrong, prove to me that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like, show me that I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being wrong, but I'm not going to sit and say nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit and say nothing while people get hurt. If I'm going to be, and that was, one one of the things as I was going through and reading The Lord of the Rings and watching those movies again, the thought that just came so heavy to my mind is, it was like, Logan, which side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the side of darkness, or do you want to be on the side of the light? And what does it take? What does it take to be an Aragorn? What does it take to be a Frodo? What does it take to be an Eowyn?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, she's the great. I mean, she might be the greatest character in the story. What does it take to be those types of people?
When do you risk everything?
Yeah.
When do you do it?
And so that 100%, I just, without being arrogant, I would just say that's my intention.
Yeah.
I know that's your intention, Dave.
Yeah.
And we might be wrong. We might be making completely the wrong conclusions.
Yeah, that's why
it's
I
very
put on
possible.
my Facebook. I put on my Facebook, and this is the theme of my life. I might be wrong, but I'm not lying.
You're right. Yes, I love that. I'm telling the truth.
I might be wrong, but I'm not lying. It's like I'm not interested in editing myself anymore. I did it, like, I edited myself. I edited the way I thought. I edited things for so long, trying to, like, okay, well, I don't want to offend anybody, and I don't want to hurt feelings, and it's just like, I'm done with that. I might be wrong, and if someone shows me, like, hey, dude, here's how you're wrong, and here's the evidence behind it, I'm not tied to my conclusions. I'm not tied to them. I will let them go. But the evidence and the path that this whole thing has taken me on has not only has it opened my eyes and expanded my thinking, it's actually made me more responsible for myself. I just think, I put another one up today, but it was accountability equals discipline, and discipline equals freedom. Like, at first, like, become accountable to the part that you've played. That, like, if you've bought the stuff, if you've spent time, and it's like, the hard part is too, like, I love Disneyland. I love taking my girls there. We went to the, like, boppity boop, whatever, like, dress up,
bippity
boppity boop boutique, and they got all dressed up and got pictures, and everyone's calling Evelyn princess, and she's bowing to everyone everywhere she goes. And I went there with my brothers recently and my sister, and we were going on rides and laughing and having a good time. And I'm not saying that you have to, like, and I'm not saying that it's all bad either. But I think the part that there is manipulation, you need to be awake to it. I think people need to. I think, like, right. You have to see the man behind the curtain. I think The Wizard of Oz, what a powerful story. There's so many things in that are so powerful. But the cowardly lion leads them. The one who thinks he's a coward is the one who leads them through out wherever they go. Who comes up with all of their ideas? Right?
Right, yeah.
It's the scarecrow, the man with no brain. The scarecrow with no brain.
Who's the one constantly defending and putting himself in front of all of his friends, willing to sacrifice himself for them at a moment's notice. The Tin Man with no heart.
Yeah, and he's constantly getting emotional and crying.
Crying.
You gotta stop crying. We can't use any more oil, man. You're running out of oil here. You're gonna rust up. You can't cry. And then you have, I just think, and then you see the Wizard of Oz. And once you've seen I think it's good for you to see behind the curtain, to see that it's just a guy off to the side.
Right. Well, and I love that you said that, because it speaks to the heart of what I think you and I, what we want to embody, even doing this,
Yeah.
I think our intention with what we're doing is for us to never be behind a curtain in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think as I've stepped into the world of being a life coach, it's hard. People perceive you in certain ways. The moment you put a label on yourself, there are masks that people put on you when they interact with you based upon a word. There are masks that you sometimes put on based upon your interpretation of a label you put on yourself. But as I've learned and as I've grown over the last few years, just discovering how can I best help people? How can I best help people? It's to shed all of the masks, to say, look, I'm no better than you. I'm no better than any of you. The reality is, like, during these days of the coronavirus, yeah, I post inspirational shit, but I wake up every day with like anxiety that almost feels crippling.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what's the best thing to do for my family? Do I go out to my job to make money, or do I stay? Like, I don't know. And there's so much worry and fear, but I don't feel the need to hide behind any of it. I don't feel the need to like tell you I don't have it. Because the reality is the connection and the honesty and the truth is what is more powerful than anything. It's more powerful than anything. The truth will set you free. And I believe that to my core. If someone's going to be like, Logan, put on your tombstone, like, what did you stand for? The truth will set you free.
Yeah.
Connect or die. That would probably be on my tombstone.
Yeah.
Connect to the truth. And is the truth constantly changing? Is the truth a matter of opinion? Sometimes, like, those are it's 2 + 2, sometimes 5. I don't fucking know. Maybe it's possible. But if you can do your best to connect to the truth of you, the truth of the world around you, the truth within dark stories, you'll be free. It will set you free. Because then you can connect to the truth of who we all are. Like, genuinely, I believe this. And just real quick, Dave, I know I'm rambling like crazy.
I appreciate it, man. Go ahead.
We were having a little discussion earlier because we were talking about how essentially I don't use the word no very much.
Yeah.
Like, I know this or I know that. I don't feel like there's anything I know anymore.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got evidence, everyone's got facts, everyone's got information. So, I can claim I know one thing, but the moment I do that, all of a sudden a bunch of facts come in to show me that the truth is actually over here. And I'm starting to realize the most powerful thing in our lives are our beliefs. What do we believe?
What do you choose to believe?
Because the truth, you might not be able to find it.
Yeah.
It might be out there. It might not be out there. If you can't prove it, then stop worrying about trying to prove it and just decide, what do you believe?
Yeah.
Like, I've had so many debates with people and so many discussions about God. Does God exist? Who is God? What is God? And I have people who think they can prove it on one side, and I have people who think they can prove it on the other side. The reality is bullshit. You can't fucking prove it.
Yeah.
So what do you believe? What do you choose to believe? And I have seen in my life power come from the belief in God. I've seen it. Yeah. If someone out there sees power come from the belief in no God, great. Go live your life.
Yeah.
Be the best person you can be. If you start hurting other people, I'm coming for you. But like,
well, and it's
that's
like,
basically my philosophy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that oftentimes people don't realize that it's a choice. Like, for me, I choose to believe in Jesus. I choose to believe in his message. I choose to believe in what he taught. I choose to believe in light, that light did overcome the darkness, and that although darkness has its day, like it was so interesting because when this whole pandemic came up, and I was having a really hard night. I opened my Bible and I was like, okay, and you can call this whatever you want. I don't really care. But I opened my Bible and I was like, all right, I need a message of hope. I need a message of hope. And I opened it. And what I opened it to was the apostles asking Jesus, what did you mean by the weeds of the field? When he's talking about sowing seeds. And he says, the weeds of the field grow and they populate, but they have their day. And they will be taken out and cast into the fire, and they'll be gnashing of teeth. And it talks about all that stuff. And there are weeds within our lives, within us personally, and within society at large. And they have their day. They pop up, they grow.
They have power,
but they won't last.
Right.
They won't last. And it was so funny because, like, when I opened up to that, that brought me comfort. And it brought me comfort for me, for my own personal experience, to have these experiences with Jesus, that like my salvation doesn't have anything to do with me, that it's not about my actions, that I can connect to something. Yes, can I go far on my own? Of course I can. Can I go far on my own intellectual abilities? Can I go far on my own ability to persevere and my willpower? Everything, yes. But for me personally, I can go a heck of a lot farther when I'm connected. And for me, that's when I'm connected to Jesus Christ. Like, that's just the way it is. And I'm not tied to any like dogma or to any like specific way of looking at that. But all I know is that to the degree that I'm willing to connect, to the degree that I'm willing to let Jesus and God into my life, to let light and love into my life, is to the degree that I can overcome the difficult things and the things that I don't want in my life, not because of my own strength, but because of the strength that's given to me. And so I just think, as you go down this rabbit hole, yes, is there darkness? But I think that darkness creates contrast. And I think like there's a philosophy that's like in the cracks of your personality, in the cracks of who you are, is where the light is let in. And I've seen that in my own life. And I like to believe in a God that was willing to suffer and to understand me. Yeah. That was limitless and chose to be limited in order to understand. That's for me. And I choose it. And it's not something that I took lightly. It's something that I spent a long time before I decided to make the decision. But I made it. And I might be wrong.
Right.
I'm not lying.
But I'm not lying.
Yeah.
Right. I love that, man. And I know I often speak in lyrics, but lyrics speak to my soul. There's a song by Jason Mraz. It's called "Everything Is Sound," and it's if I would say that I've had an anthem over the past month and a half with all this Corona stuff, it's been this song. Everything is sound, and the idea and the concept that literally everything that we experience in life is truth. To some degree, it teaches us something. It has something to say. It has a message for us. And there's a part at the end, towards the end, where he says, "It's a song that I've forgotten often. It doesn't make me wrong, because we all need the darkness to see the light." And I love that. I think that that's so applicable. I think it's those moments. It's been the worst times in my life that have shown me the truth of who I am, who I want to be, and how I want to move forward. It's in those moments of greatest darkness that all of a sudden I start to just glimpse this light that is so blinding, and it starts to just encompass my life. And it's the one thing I grab onto, and it's the one thing that pulls me out. It's connecting to those things. It's being present in the moments of our lives. And as much darkness as there is in this topic, as there is in the world, I just feel so strongly. It's like 3%.
Yeah.
It's 3% of the people, maybe even less than that. The world is full of light. It is full of light. Our lives are full of light. And if we can see that, we can connect to it, the darkness is not going to win. It will never win. It will never win, especially if we are willing to bring it out of the shadow, like to say, hey, I love this so much. I love what I'm experiencing. I love what I'm seeing. I will not let anything destroy that experience for anyone else. And I think one of the shining examples of where we are as a humanity is how we treat our children. And that's what gets at the heart of this thing for me is, there are children who are going through this, and children whose experience in this life are being destroyed because of something bad. Something bad is at the heart of this. And I might be wrong in terms of the fingers I'm pointing and who I'm saying is the source, but wherever it is, we're going to find it and we're going to root it out, and it's going to die.
Yeah. It's a weed. Has its time, but it won't last forever. And I think to the degree that we're willing to talk about this stuff, even though it's uncomfortable, to the degree that we're willing to be open about it and open to information, is the degree that the mask goes away, that the facade goes away. And I've noticed this online. I've noticed this recently. It seems like so many people are just waking up. They're waking up.
There's a renaissance coming,
the orthodoxy of unconsciousness is starting to go away. The cloud, it's like maybe we're going to be able to see what happens to King Theoden when Gandalf comes in and pulls the poison out through light. And he's like, I don't know, like he didn't know if he was going to have enough strength. And he's like, take up your sword.
My dreams have been dark of late.
Yeah. And he says, your the strength of your arm might remember itself better if you take up your sword. And I think we have that kind of renaissance coming. I think that there's a lot to be excited about. There are so many cool things, and people can't hide anymore. You just can't hide. And so I appreciate everyone who listened to this. Hope you appreciate our ramblings. These are the conversations that me and Logan have all the time.
Right.
And we're so glad that you guys get to be a part of it. If you like this video, please comment, please share, please, if you like the podcast, share it. Honestly, like, this is something that I think is important. And I would love for more people to learn about this. And so we'll link the video. You can check that out. You can go listen to 1984 on Audible. That's where I listen to it. You can find that book anywhere, really. You can buy it used for $2, I'm sure, somewhere. So you can find it. And I think just as we focus on liberty and freedom and individual empowerment, the individual's ability to move through this life and make decisions for him or herself, that is the right direction, I think. And so, if you decide to go watch the documentary, go watch it and engage with us on Facebook. Let us know what you think. Like, I really am curious to see what people think about this and when they and what they and I'm sure there's going to be differing opinions, and that's what I like to see. So I appreciate you. Do you have any last words, Logan?
No, I was just gonna say, if there's anyone out there listening who would, if want to connect with us and message us, possibly even be on the podcast and have a conversation with us about your stories, a topic that's you're passionate about, reach out to us. You can find me on Facebook, Logan Larkin. I'm sure you'll recognize me by my beard. You can find me on Instagram at The Elevated Man, and we would love to hear from anyone who's willing to engage.
Same here. Dave Swenson on Instagram, and if you're watching this, you probably are a friend of mine on Facebook. So
probably true. That's true.
And so you can message me, and we'd love to talk to you. And other than that, thank you so much for listening. And we're out.
All right.
Nectar die, everybody.